Yo, yo, yo. What is going on, Fantasy Blitz? It's your boy Eli Heron, Eli. Third place, fourth place, whatever you want to call me. I didn't win any championships this year, so yeah, I can't be called a winner. However, I can be called a researcher, and I'm very excited to give out awards. And we got a lot of awards to hand out, so I'm very excited. Let me know how y'all doing in the chat. Let me know how y'all feel about the playoffs. Very excited for that time. It feels weird not having your team. Well, it's been 3 years, or actually it might have been like 6 years since the Falcons haven't made the playoffs. But it's always weird because the regular season ends, and you're like, oh, football's over. And then you realize it's not over. It's not even close to being over. So we got plenty of games. Mainly today, we're just going to go over some awards I personally chose just for fantasy. These aren't regular season performance awards. They're just fantasy performance awards. In the next slide, I'll show you guys what I'm looking at. We're going to go over the positional players, so let's get started. First off, here are the list. We'll go over quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, defense, and special teams, as well as kickers. Yes, kickers are people too, all right? Don't ever forget that. Talking about you, Justin Tucker. I love you. So here we go. And also, other than those positional awards, we have Flop of the Year, the Saddest Injury, Rookie of the Year, and, of course, Fantasy Blitz's own MVP of the Year. So, without further ado, let's get it started. Oh, let's see. We got a comment from Angelo. Looking forward to the playoffs, especially with Arthur Smith gone. Amen. Amen. We are free. Hold on. We are free. If you are a Falcons fan, we are free. I don't know who they're going to bring in. We'll also talk about, I got some notes about some coaching vacancies out there that may, where some coaches land and where some teams could have or coach away, or I should say. I don't know. I'm lost of words. I'm just so excited that Arthur Smith's gone. I hope he can do well, whatever he's going to do for the rest of the time. But it won't be with the Falcons, and that makes me happy and millions of other people happy as well. So, flop, saddest injury, rookie, MVP, those will be the back-end awards. So, let's move on. Let's do it. I'm so excited. Oh, my gosh. Here we go. Quarterback. So, here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to give y'all two names for each position, and I'm just going to give a little rundown on why these two guys are my two best players at that position. And then I'm going to give the next slide who the winner is, and I'll give some depth about why. It won't be a long show. It may be a long show. I don't know. I may talk about this forever. Who knows? So let's move on. So for the quarterbacks, we have Josh Allen, and we got Jalen Hurts. So for Josh Allen, he's got 4,306 passing yards on the year. Jalen Hurts, 3,858. Obviously, the Bills are way more of a passing team, so you can definitely see them not doing the tush-push as much. Jalen Hurts, well, that wouldn't accumulate a lot of yards, but Jalen Hurts is definitely more of a running quarterback than Josh Allen. Josh Allen does like to run on his feet or just run in general, but I expect Josh Allen to have way more passing yards. However, this is where it kind of turned around for me. The touchdowns, Josh Allen's got a total of 44. That's running and passing included. 44 compared to Jalen Hurts is 38, so that one's a huge one. Shout out to Josh at the end of the season. They went on a 5-game win streak, and then total opposite of the Eagles. They went they started off 10-1, and then I think they finished, I believe, 11-6. So they went 1-5 in their last 6. Not very good. And then turnovers, Josh has 22, while Jalen Hurts has 20. I believe Allen had a turnover in each game at the beginning of the year, like first 10, 12 games, or maybe this is in the entire rest of the year. He was a pick machine. He was averaging about 1.2 or 1.3 interceptions per game. Not very good, and also he fumbled here and there. However, he won the games at the end of the year, and that's all that matters. Jalen Hurts only got 20, so not too bad, but man, you got to clean those up if you want your team to be a whole lot better. Because the Bills ended at the 2nd seed. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles finished as the 5th seed. They could have had the 2nd seed, however, they just bombed at the end of the year. And then total fantasy points at the end of the year. I'm going off PPR, points per reception. But not for these guys, it matters too much. But Allen finished with 410.6, and Jalen Hurts finished with 371.8. If you compare these stats together, it's not very surprising that our winner for our quarterback of the year is the one and only Josh Allen. Shout out to my roommate Davis. He's a big Josh Allen fan, so this one's just for you, buddy. So let's go Bills. Hopefully we'll see how that goes. But yeah, shout out to Josh Allen, our first inaugural, I think that's how you say it, winner of the Fantasy Blitz Quarterback Award. Shout out to Josh Allen. Dubs in the chat for our guy. We love Josh. We stand him over here. Next one, running back. All right, this one's actually kind of tough, but if you look at it, it's really not that tough. Next one, Christian McCaffrey, 2,023 total yards. Raheem Mostert, 1,187 total yards. Raheem, he didn't play too much this year. I think he missed 2 or 3 games. But then one of those games that he did play, he was injured, so he didn't get a full game in. So, I mean, he's not going to catch up with 900 yards or so to be equivalent with Christian McCaffrey. However, they did have the same amount of touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey had way more, I believe it's more running touchdown or rushing and receiving touchdowns than Raheem did. But the total touches, man, that's the stat you got to look at. Especially Adam talked about earlier in the season about how it's all about the touches and the volume and production that you get out of a player. And Christian McCaffrey was that guy at the beginning of the season. I can't believe, I'm not surprised that Justin Jefferson was the consensus number 1 overall pick. But, I mean, Christian, when I was looking at the original ADP rankings for this season, McCaffrey was like 1.5 or 1.6, and that was round 1, pick number 6, pick number 5. And I'm just surprised because there were some guys ahead of him that were just not big names like him or that I expected to do as well. We'll get into that a little bit later. But for total touches, Christian McCaffrey, 336. Raheem Mostert, 224. That's quite the difference. That's about 112. Or that is 112 difference. But a lot of those touches for Christian McCaffrey came in the pass game. And if you watch any 49er football, you know he's at least getting 3 to 4 catches in that game. Because if you give him an open space, he's going to get you at least 6 to 7 yards. Good chunk yards just to get the ball moving, get upfield. Total fantasy points, 324.3 for Christian McCaffrey. Again, we're going off PPR. And all these stats are according to StatMuse. Shout out to StatMuse. Love that website. And then Raheem, 267.7. I got to say, Raheem did surprise me this year. He was actually pretty good. I didn't think he finished as strong because he had that beginning, I think it was like week 2 or week 3. He had like the 50-point game. And that's what really put him on the map. But then, you know, I was in the beginning like, oh, that won't happen again. Of course, he didn't score 50 again, but that guy, I mean, he kept popping off later. And, you know, he definitely kept up. Injuries happened, so he didn't get to finish as strong. But we have to say, as our number 1 running back, the one and only Christian McCaffrey. Dubs in the chat for the guy. I mean, he was like supposed to be a bust this year. Supposed to be. A lot of people are saying, oh, he can't stay healthy, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I think the guy played the entire season minus the last game of the year just because they already clinched the number 1 seed. So shout out to Christian, man. Well done. Hopefully he'll win more awards later on in the show. So let's move on to the next one. But we got some chats to answer, actually, from Will Edwards. Rah, the GOAT. I think he's talking about Josh Allen, so yes, or Christian McCaffrey. But yes, those guys are GOAted. Shout out to those guys for real. Then we got Coin Operator. It's playoff time. Good seeing you, Eli. Absolutely, Coin Operator. Good seeing you. One of the OGs of the chat. Love Coin Operator. Love your insight and all that, man. So let's move on. We got wide receivers. Oh, boy. This one's a tough one, I can't lie. I was, the entire time, I'll have to say, for all these awards, I was not too conflicted. Like, for Christian McCaffrey and Raheem, I knew it was going to be Christian McCaffrey. For quarterback, I knew it was going to be Josh Allen. But for wide receiver, when I came up with Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb, I started looking at their numbers, and they're pretty even, except for the fantasy total points. But Tyreek Hill, 1,799. He was so close to that 2,000 season like he said he was going to get. But injuries held him back, and I saw a clip of him dropping 4 catches, and that was huge. Those could have easily, like, he could have, not saying 4 catches for 200 yards, but I think he easily could have gone up closer, and if you're at, like, 1,950 and you're trying to hit that 2,000 mark, they would have given you the ball a little bit more. CeeDee Lamb, not too far behind, only 50 yards behind at 1,749. Both over 10 touchdowns, which is impressive for a wide receiver, I would say, in general. But Tyreek Hill, 13. CeeDee Lamb, 12. Here's where it gets interesting for me. Tyreek Hill's total receptions is at 119. For CeeDee Lamb, 135. 16 more than Tyreek Hill, but only 50 yards less than Tyreek Hill. So that means that Tyreek Hill's yards per catch is way more, I would say, by having more total yards and less catches. But then we move on to the fantasy total points. 376.4 for Tyreek. But then 403.2 for CeeDee Lamb. My goodness. Towards the end of the season, that man balled out like insane amount. I mean, it was incredible to watch. I didn't like it personally because I played him a bunch, I think, like 3 times this year. I don't know how. Trades happen. and I ended up playing him 3 times, so that was a stinker. Really did not like that. But very close in these stats right here. However, the winner of the 2023-2024 Fantasy Blitz wide receiver is CeeDee Lamb. Clap it up for him. Dubs in the chat for the guy. I got to say, the reason I chose CeeDee Lamb is because he had a stellar end of the season. Tyreek was the #1 receiver all year, pretty much. All year, he was balling out. He was a consistent player. But then, towards the end of the season, CeeDee Lamb really started taking off, and he started to become a problem if you didn't have him. So if you didn't have him and you saw that your opponent had him, I would get more nervous if I saw my opponent with CeeDee Lamb rather than Tyreek Hill. So that's why I'm giving it to CD, because he's clutch. You know, it was time for the fantasy playoffs, and he came in clutch for multiple guys, not including me, of course, because, you know, everyone's against me. Just kidding. But, yeah, shout out to CeeDee Lamb. Let's go. Let's move on to the chats, though. We got Angelo Gunn. Bum of the year. Yes, Arthur Smith, 1,000% bum of the year. Let me know who y'all think should be the Falcons head coach. I would like to see what y'all think and why. I think it's going to be Belichick. That's just because I think it's got the most I think it's just gaining the most speed for it. I don't know why, though. Why in the world would he come? I have no idea. Let's move on. Next, we have tight ends. It feels really weird not having Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews on here. However, Mark Andrews got hurt earlier in the season, and Travis Kelce and the Chiefs just all of a sudden nothing came from it. So we got down to the one and only T.J. Hawkinson. I love him. And Sam Laporta, the rookie. I love him as well. These stats were also pretty close. I had another conflict or just in my stomach. I just didn't know who to go with. But T.J. Hawkinson, 960 total yards. That's great for a tight end. So close to 1,000 yards, but he also got hurt. And then we have Sam Laporta, the rookie, 889 total yards. Touchdowns, 5 for TJ, 10 for Laporta. That's incredible for me. That's what gives him the edge in total fantasy points at 239.3 compared to TJ's 219. And then total receptions, Laporta had 9 less than TJ Hawkinson, which is crazy to me because the Vikings had way more wideout weapons than the Lions did. I think the Lions really only have Amon-Ra St. Brown and then Sam Laporta, which on the Vikings they have Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. So which is crazy to me that TJ Hawkinson ended up getting more. But I think that had to do with Justin Jefferson being on IR for 4 weeks or so. But this was a close one. I love these two guys. Next year, they're going to be ballers. I know Laporta is going to be a baller, especially if things don't change too much in Detroit. Very excited for that playoff game. That's going to be incredible. The script went off this year. But without further ado, the tight end award goes to Sam Laporta. I got to say, and the reason I give him the award is because he shocked a lot of people. In that first game, I don't think he did amazing, but I think he had a touchdown or he had like a good amount of receptions or yards, but he started to put himself on the map more. And then after week 1, he just stayed in the top 5. He never left. And same with T.J. Hawkinson. He never left the top 5. But it was incredible how he just took over all of a sudden. So shout out to Sam Laporta. He's only a rookie. Can only imagine the things he's going to do from here on out. So dubs in the chat for him. Let's clap it up for the guy. Let's go. Let's move on to some chats. Chat's blowing up. I love it, guys. I appreciate it. Let's see. I vote prime time for Falcons coach. Man. Oh, my goodness. Wayne Herron, I would agree. Shout out to Pops. I would love to see Dion come because people want to play for him, and that's why I think he's perfect for college right now. I don't know if he's too ready or if he's ready for NFL, but you know it's Deion Sanders. He can do whatever he wants. But he's perfect for college right now, and I think if he gets like 2 more years of experience, because after his sons leave, I really don't know if he's going to stay in Colorado that much longer. But I would love to see him come to the Falcons. Good little reunion. That would make the fan base a whole lot happier because right now we are miserable, and it really, really hurts. So someone come save us. I don't know who, but someone come save us. Let's move on to the next award, the defense and special teams. This one's very interesting to me because it has 2 amazing defenses. These 2 defenses were ranked 1 and 2. Ravens were 1. Cowboys were 2. But let's look at the stats. Interceptions, 18 for the Ravens, 17 for the Cowboys. Neck and neck right there, but the Ravens finished as #1 team for interceptions, as well as fumbles were covered and sacks, but I didn't put the sacks on there because some leagues don't accumulate points for sacks. But fumbles recovered, 13 for the Ravens, 9 for the Cowboys. That was the big difference maker for me because if you can get fumbles, man, that's just huge. Because wherever the ball gets, fumbled at, that's where you pick the ball up at. Interceptions could be 30 yards down the field, which is great, but then you have to start 30 yards all the way down the field. Fumbles, if they fumble the snap or if they fumble behind the goal line, or not behind the goal line, behind the first down mark, that's where you're starting the ball. So fumble recoveries are huge for me. Points allowed all season, 268. That's a big one. I think that's like the lowest for a team in like a few years or so. I'm not too sure. I saw a stat. Got to write these down. For the Cowboys, 309. Cowboys started off fantastic at the beginning of the year. They were a huge stud. They were number one for a while, and then Trevon Diggs got hurt. That really hurt their secondary. Clearly, it didn't hurt them too much, but that did hurt them a little bit. So then they were on the decline just for a little bit, but then they shot back up. Fantasy average, 10.9 for the Ravens, 10.8 for the Cowboys. Literally a 0.1 difference. But, I mean, it's got to be the Ravens, man. It's got to be the Ravens. Hopefully they can add some more hardware later on in the year. If you've been watching the show, you know how I feel about the Ravens. I love my Ravens. I love Lamar. I think they can do it. Please don't choke. I can't handle it, man. Please, no. But, yeah, shout out to the Ravens. They were always a team that you would draft towards the end of the draft, if no matter how many teams you had in the league. But the Ravens, Cowboys, those are teams that you like. The Jets as well. Those are teams that you're gonna draft. But yeah, let's move on to the next one. Let's go. I was gonna say let's get. Golly, man, I can't speak. I'm so excited though. Kickers, we got Brandon Aubrey and Justin Tucker. Brandon Aubrey, that guy took a lot of people by surprise, just because I believe he was in the USFL or the XFL or he was MLS. He was not playing football, like professional football. But Brandon Aubrey, he went 36 for 38, 94.7 completion. That's incredible. I mean, that's absurd. I don't know how you go 36 for 38 like as your first year or, like being brand new to this kind of stuff. But I think it also helps by kicking in a dome, not giving any excuses. Justin Tucker, the NFL's most accurate kicker in NFL history, had a down year. 32 for 37, 86.4%. He still managed to finish as the second best kicker in ESPN leagues. But then point after touchdown, this is where Brandon Aubrey kind of slacked a little bit. Yes, he only missed 3, but, I mean, that's 3 points off the board. Those are pretty important. But he went 49 for 52, 94.2%. Justin Tucker, 51 for 52, 98.1%. He doesn't miss those. Justin Tucker's automatic. He's going to continue doing this for a while. And then we have games played, 17 for each guy. Fantasy average, 11.1 and 10.8. That's incredible to me. Just because that's more than some running backs average that were bust, and that's more than some tight ends. So if you had either of those guys, then you were sitting pretty each week. I know I picked him off, Justin Tucker off the waiver. That made me feel super excited just because Justin Tucker is not a guy that can be on the waiver wire. So when I saw him, I just picked him up right away. But that wasn't enough for me to bring him home. Brandon Aubrey is the actual champion for the kicker of the year. So shout out to Brandon. Love that guy. Very special. Hopefully he does well against Green Bay. I don't know how well because I'm not the biggest Cowboys fan. But I am a Brandon Aubrey fan. I like his story. Y'all should go check it out. It's very important. Let's move on to the next one. I believe it's Flop of the Year. This is an exciting award because I'm not dissing either of these guys, and the final stat on the bottom is very important to me, the ADP, because that's the average draft position. So if you took those guys pretty high and they underperformed, which they did, then the guys behind you or the guys you drafted after were probably slim pickings because you took a higher risk, I should say. But Austin Eckler, total yards, 1,064. Now, for those that aren't too familiar with just like stats in general, that may seem well just because it has 4 digits. But a guy like Austin Eckler, I mean, he should be getting like north of maybe 1,700 total yards because he's like a Swiss Army knife. Like he gets the ball through the air and on the ground all the time. But the injury bug did come to play as he only played 14 games. He only scored 6 total touchdowns, and he only had a total of 185.4 fantasy points in PPR. That stinks. That's absolutely terrible, I have to say, because he was taking top 5 picks. Top 5 picks easily, and then he just gets hurt all the time. I believe he played the first 2 games of the year, and then after that he went on a skid of just not playing for a little bit. And then 6 points, 7 points, 8 points, and then he'd go for 20, and then he'd go for 24, and then he'd go for 2, and then he'd go for 3. Very disappointing. Not a big fan of Austin Eckler this year. However, I think he will bounce back. Then we have Travis Kelce. Man, his 1,000-yard streak snapped. I believe it was 7 seasons in a row that he scored, or he got 1,000 total yards for a tight end, which is incredible. But 984, that's not terrible at all. But the reason I put him on there is because his ADP was 1.7 to 1.9. I know a lot of guys that took him in the first round. Let me put this out here. I am not a fan of taking tight ends until the third round or so, because tight ends are hard, but you don't want to go after Travis Kelce. You don't want to go after Mark Andrews in the first 2 rounds. It's not worth it. I promise you. Let some else guy or some other guy get it, because my gosh, it's not going to work out, because then you'll end up like this with Travis Kelce, who only got 5 total touchdowns all year. He played in 15 games, had 219.4 points. Not terrible, but you were expecting at least like 275 from him, at least. But all of a sudden the Chiefs just don't want to chief this year, and it was looking rough. So, without further ado, the first flop of the year goes to the one and only Austin Eckler. I'm so sorry, Austin. It's no diss to you. You were fantastic last year. You were fantastic 2 years ago. However, this year, not so much. Very rough for Austin Eckler this year. I believe he will bounce back, but you are the winner of the Flop of the Year award. Very sad. Womp womp. Let's move on. Oh, let's see. We got a chat from the one and only Hudson Hancock. Shout out to Hudson. I won the championship because of Eli from Fantasy Blitz. Shout out to Hudson. Man, you made the call, so technically you did it, but I'm just trying to help y'all win. Makes me happy that I can get some of the credit, Hudson, so I appreciate you. I'm only here because of you, Hudson. So really, was it you that helped you win the championship? Think about that one. Just think about it. Let's move on. Saddest injury of the year. This one stunk. I really did not like making this one, because then I had to reflect on the injuries that happened. There were so many injuries, but the Nick Chubb and Aaron Rodgers one stuck out to me the most. Nick Chubb, 170 total yards. Yes, total yards, 170. And 0 touchdowns. He only played 2 games this year, and he combined 23.1 points for the entire season. Then we have Aaron Rodgers, 0, 1 games played, and 0 fantasy points total. Very rough for Aaron Rodgers. However, I'm going to make this one quick. I'm not giving the saddest injury to Aaron Rodgers because it ended so soon, but I'm giving it to Nick Chubb. And the reason I'm giving it to Nick Chubb is because a lot of people took him in the first round as like a dark horse, and including myself. I told a lot of people to take him in the first round because I wouldn't want him to slip away. Like if you're like 1.5 or you're picking 5th or 6th in your league and you wanted to get a steal, Nick Chubb was great to me because you might miss him in the second round, so you just want to go ahead and grab him. It was rough to see him go like that. We love Nick Chubb. I'm a big Dogs fan, so of course that injury, I felt it in my heart. But I believe he'll come back next year. He may not be the same just because injuries mess up players, man. They really do. But, yeah, as y'all can see, we have sad faces for Nick Chubb because it's a sad time. We don't want to see Nick Chubb hurt. We don't want to see anyone hurt, to be honest. But, yeah, we got to move on, man. I think we got Rookie of the Year next. Yes, sir, we do. Rookie of the Year. Bijan Robinson versus Puka Nacua. This one was close, but not too close, I would say, just because Puka had a historical year. But Bijan, 1,463 total yards. The guy was more, I would say he was better in the pass game than he was in the run game. Excuse me. And that's saying a lot, especially in the Arthur Smith offense. So I'm really hoping that they can bring in someone that can utilize him more in the run game because he's a runner, man. He runs hard, and it's fantastic to watch. Total touchdowns for Bijan, 8. Very lackluster. Games played, he played all 17 games. 272 total touches. Now, that's a stat to look out for, especially for next year. I know the consensus is going to be not to pick him in the first round. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't either just because I would be scarred. But I can see him being high second round next year just because of that stat alone. 272 total touches for a rookie. I mean, they really worked him, but they didn't work him enough. And I don't think they worked him in the right way. I think they gave him more BS touches, like 3rd and 18. Let's give him a little screen. Let's go. Instead of being on like the 1 or 2 and just handing it off. But no, Arthur Smith wants to do a jet sweep with Jonnu Smith. Okay, I don't have to be mad about it anymore. Arthur Smith's not there anymore, so I won't get mad about that. Then we have Puka Nacua, who's out here setting records. Did not think this guy would. I mean, at the beginning of the year, he had that first game where it was incredible that Puka popped off in some sort of way, and everyone's like, "Oh, who is this guy? Let me go add him on the waiver just in case." Just in case. That's the key phrase. And then all of a sudden, the guy sets records for most receptions and then total yards as a rookie for receiving. But Puka finished the year with 1,575 total yards, 6 total touches, 17 games played, and 117 total touches as well. He finished the year with 298.5 fantasy score, and this is PPR, and then Bijan 246.3. So even as a wide receiver, as a rookie wide receiver, 298.5, that's incredible. I mean, he outscored Travis Kelce. So shout out to Puka. Before we get into this one, let's look into the chat. We got Hayden Hammond saying, "Rip Nick Chubb." Yes, rip Nick Chubb. That was painful to watch. The injury is gruesome. I would not look it up if you haven't seen it, but I'm sure if you're watching the show, you have seen it. But I think he will come back. But yeah, rip in peace, as the kids like to say. And then we got Angelo saying, "Puka." You guessed right. Come on, Angelo. We're bringing it home to Puka. We love Puka over here at Fantasy Blitz. Shout out to Puka Nacua. I do think he will continue doing well. I think it helped a lot that he had Cooper Kupp on his team. And I'm not saying Cooper Kupp served as a distraction all year, but Cooper Kupp definitely probably taught him a few things or drew away the defense in some sort of way or made it like a double threat, you know. So shout out to Puka, man. Very excited to see how he does next year. I don't believe there will be a sophomore slump for either of those guys. They're way too talented, and I think they work way too hard for them just to fall off. Because, you know, usually those sophomore slump guys, they don't do too well because the money gets to their head. And then they're like, "Oh, I'm the guy, blah, blah, blah." And then all of a sudden, nothing happens. So let's move on, I believe, the MVP. This is the big one, all right? Christian McCaffrey versus CeeDee Lamb. I already showed the stats earlier, so we'll go over it one more time. Total yards for Christian McCaffrey, 2,023. CeeDee Lamb, 1,749. Obviously, there is going to be a gap because Christian McCaffrey is going to have way more touches than CeeDee Lamb. I mean, he's got over, it's 201 difference in total touches, but that's the era we're in nowadays. You know, Christian McCaffrey's going to get all those touches. Touchdowns, Christian McCaffrey with 21, CeeDee Lamb with 12. 21 touchdowns in a year, that's incredible. I think the streak, oh, man, if anyone remembers what the streak was for Christian McCaffrey, I think it was like 17 or 18 straight games dating to last season with the touchdown. Incredible. I don't know when the streak snapped, but I was very hurt. I was very hurt because I wanted to see it continue going on. Fantasy total points, CeeDee Lamb had 403.2 compared to Christian McCaffrey's 324.3. Now, this is PPR, so that's definitely why there's such a big gap right there. Because, you know, CeeDee Lamb gained 135 points just from touching the ball, you know. But very hard decision here because I was thinking CeeDee Lamb just because he helped out at the end of the year. But we got to go with Christian McCaffrey. Dubs in the chat for the guy. Love Christian McCaffrey, man. I love how he silenced all the naysayers out there that would say he would get hurt or that he wouldn't do too well because he fell off. But I got to shout out him because you are the man, Christian McCaffrey. You're back at the top of fantasy football like you were with the Carolina Panthers. I'm very glad you're not with the Carolina Panthers because I don't have to play you I don't have to play you. Falcons don't have to play you twice a year, so we get to avoid that. So now I get to love you even more. But that concludes the awards. However, I do have some NFL news I want to talk about. We have 8 teams, as of right now, I believe, 8 teams that do not have a head coach. And in that order, or in that, you know, realm, we have the Falcons, we have the Patriots, we have the Panthers, the Titans, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Seahawks, and the Commanders. Realistically, I don't see the Raiders going in another direction than Antonio Pierce because the players love him, the fans love him, and I think just the NFL loves him. I love Antonio Pierce, man. That guy really cares about that fan base and he cares about the team. I mean, why would you not want to play for a guy like him? So I have to say that I would say that's off the table. However, the Raiders as an organization, it's iffy, man. It's very iffy. So I wouldn't be surprised if they went another route with some other guy and then just pissed off the entire fan base because that's what the Raiders do. We'll see how that goes. And also, I'm very curious to see how their quarterback situation goes. But, yeah, Pete Carroll's no longer with Seattle. That'll be interesting to see. I think that's a very enticing job just because now you do have a proven veteran in Geno Smith and you have a young wide receiver in Jackson Smith-Njigba. I don't think he will be like that guy for them, but I do think DK Metcalf and especially Tyler Lockett can teach him a few things where he could become one of the better receivers in the league. Like I said, he is a young receiver. He is a rookie, so it may take time for him to fully develop, but we did see at the end of the year he did start to make that push. So shout out to him. But then I really think the best job available, and I'm not trying to sound biased, but Falcons and Chargers. I was talking to my roommate Hayden earlier. Chargers are already set, man. They got a solid-ish keyword-ish defense, but quarterback situation taken care of. Running back situation taken care of. They have a good young wide receiver core. Gerald Everett is a great tight end. I mean, it was just Brandon Staley that absolutely stunk, right? So I think that, and also it's in L.A. Like, why? I know it's California, but why would you not want to go coach a team in L.A.? Like, that's beautiful. You don't have to really ever worry about weather conditions. It's not like you're going to go coach in New England where it's cold all the time. So I think that's a great job opening. I think the Falcons is a strong or a strong number 1 or number 2 candidate because there are a lot of young talent. You know, they've built past 3 years, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson as their first-round picks. I mean, you set up their offense, right? Atlanta needs to get back to their offensive ways because it was weird watching this year having them be a very great defensive team, and then offense just wasn't there. That's not Falcon football. That's not NFL football. It's not how you can win games anymore. This isn't the 70s. This is not the 80s. You need to have a good offense. And we're just one quarterback away. So I think if the Falcons get a good quarterback, well, I imagine they're going to get a head coach before quarterback, but if they can somehow put out there that they're going to get a quarterback, I think that head coaching job will become a whole lot more enticing for these coaches out there that don't have a job, just because then they don't have to worry about, okay, my main priority is to get a quarterback. So we'll see how that goes. Then we have the playoffs. I'm going to give you all a quick playoff rundown of who I think is going to win. Now, I don't have any score predictions because it's the playoffs. You never know. But we'll start with the AFC. We have Browns versus Texans. I'm going to roll with the Browns. That defense is too stellar. I don't want them to win because then I think that means they're probably going to play the Ravens, and I don't want them to play the Ravens because they scare me, and I don't want Joe Flacco to go back to Baltimore and potentially beat them. That would make me sad. Chiefs, Dolphins, Chiefs all day. I don't care what any of you guys have to say about the Chiefs. They're still the Chiefs. You have to beat them in the playoffs. They're the reigning defending champions, all right? So you still have to beat them. And Miami's going into their house where it's cold, and I don't think Miami's going to adapt well. I think Chiefs are probably going to blow them out in some sort of way. So I got Chiefs all day. Bills, Steelers, TJ Watt's out. Steelers are out. They're 1-10 without TJ Watt. Or, yeah, without him playing, they're 1-10. And they have a winning record with him in, and they're on the road. That offense is just shaky. Bills have a great defense. They're the hottest team in the NFL. And I want to clear the air. Okay, a couple streams ago, I said I wouldn't want to see the Bills in the playoffs. I was saying I wouldn't want to see them if I were another team. I wouldn't want to face them in the playoffs because I'd get nervous, man. They want to win the Super Bowl, I think, more than any other team. Probably the Eagles or the 49ers. I think they really want to win. Well, they all want to win, but I think they really have that desire to get back in there. But, yeah, I think Bills are going to run over them. I really think the Bills can make a run. But, yeah, that's the AFC side. NFC side, Packers, Cowboys. It pains me, but Cowboys. However, I believe that Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love are 4-0, or they're 4-0 in the playoffs in AT&T Stadium. So that's something to look out for. As you know, I'm a huge Jordan Love fan. I really think that guy can be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Down the road, may take a couple years. He is a little bit older, but I do think he can be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. But I am going to the Cowboys. They haven't lost at home all year. Don't see that happening, especially against the Packers as a young team. I believe they're the youngest team in the league. So let's move on. Eagles, Bucks. Potential trap game, okay? I'm a little nervous about that one just because the Bucks have home field advantage. They're a little shaky. Their offense struggles against solid-ish defenses, but Baker could light that secondary up. He really could. Don't know if I can see that happening. Rachaad White might get stuffed from that Philly front seven. So I'm going to go with the Eagles, and that would set up an Eagles-Cowboys playoff matchup, which I'm all here for. I don't know who wouldn't be, because then I can just sit back and relax and watch and see who wins. Then the next game, Rams-Lions. I don't have any upsets in the playoffs except for this one. I got the Rams beating the Lions. I think the Rams are way more experienced, and I think they're a little more determined because they might want to go out there and win it for Stafford. However, Detroit, man, they are hungry for a playoff win. They are super hungry. They finally have a solid team, a solid overall team. Jared Goff is the X factor. I think if we can tell within the first quarter, if Jared Goff is starting to look shaky, it's going to be a wrap because they need Jared Goff to do well. The defense will take care of itself. The running backs will take care of themselves. The wide receivers will take care of themselves. If Jared Goff turns that ball over more than once, it's over. I would say that they need to be careful and they need to be cautious. But I'm going with the Rams. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions won just because they're ready. They really, really want to win. I'm excited, man. These playoffs are going to be great. I can't remember the last time we had a fantastic playoff matchup like this. Like, we got Browns versus Texans. I know Deshaun Watson's not playing, but he has to go back to Houston. Chiefs, Dolphins. Tyreek Hill's got to go back to Kansas City. Bills, Steelers. I mean, that's just a classic. Those two logos next to each other, easy money. And then we got Packers, Cowboys. Another, see those two logos next to each other? That's, beautiful to see. Eagles, Bucks. Great. They played earlier in the year. I think Eagles walked right through them. And then we got Rams, Lions. Jared Goff versus his old team. Matthew Stafford versus his old team. Beautiful, beautiful playoff matchups. They went off with the script. I love making that joke just because it's hilarious. We got one chat. I believe it's Hayden. Jeff Collins for Falcons head coach. I would probably, man, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Yeah, I don't know. That would be a trap. I would probably move on to being a full-time Ravens fan. So yeah, no, thank you. I would rather have Casper the Ghost be our coach. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. That concludes the Fantasy Blitz Awards and the regular season. Y'all got to let me know what y'all want in the chat, what y'all want in the comments about what you want from here on out. I'm really thinking about doing some mock drafts in positional rankings for next year. I know it's early, but it's never too early. For quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, maybe a stream for each one of those. They'll be short streams, probably 20 minutes or so. This one went on a little bit longer than I expected, but that's all right. Thank you guys for hanging out here. I got some final remarks because it's the regular season. We're closing it up. I got to thank from my family. Thank you, Mom, Pop, or my mom, my dad. I appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing supporters. Thank you to my sisters. I love y'all. Appreciate you guys tuning in and just y'all a great support group. I really do appreciate it. I want to thank my roommates. You guys are also great for tuning in and just watching and hanging out. So I really do appreciate you guys for even checking in. Then I want to thank Nick and Adam and Hudson for even bringing me on here. I wouldn't even be here without her, Hudson, and especially Nick. I miss you, Adam. Miss you a bunch, man. But I really do appreciate you guys. And I want to thank Hit Network as well because look at this. This is beautiful. This is great. A great little startup for just a little Fantasy Blitz show that, we want to help fantasy football. We love football, man. That's why we're doing it over here. And last but not least, I want to thank my girlfriend, Sayana. Thank you so much, Sayana, for being a wonderful, supportive human being in my life. And I'm always going to be here for you as well. But that wraps up the show, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. We're so close to 500. We're going to get 500 by next week. I know we will, and we're going to do it. Make sure to like and subscribe and share with your friends. I really do appreciate you guys. And let's get out of here. Peace.